Hello and a very warm welcome to ET Studio CFO Blueprint in association with ET CFO. I'm your host Devina Lasan, and on this series, we're thrilled to bring you conversations with India's leading CFOs to help us get unique insights about the journey of the modern CFO. Now, preparing for a potential recession during inflationary times presents a very unique set of challenges for chief financial officers. The CFO imperative in such a scenario involves a combination of financial prudence, strategic planning, and agility. So without further ado, on this episode, we're here to discuss prepping up for recession in these inflationary times, the CFO imperative. Here to help us deep dive into this and much more, it's my pleasure to welcome a very esteemed guest today, Rajesh Daga, CFO, Kellogg's. Rajesh, thank you so much for being here today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for calling me, and I hope it's a wonderful time we have together.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we're here today to talk about a lot of the challenges, though, that CFOs are going to face. So just at the onset, Rajesh, if you can help us lay some context about how, in your opinion, the challenges that the CFO will have to face in the coming years, in the coming year ahead, actually, in the face of potential recession, what would the top challenges be and how would you be addressing them?
So in my head, there are three typical challenges which they still persist. One is you have still inflation. And right now, if you look at it, inflation, it seems to be a mixed bag. There are countries like India where it is slowing down, but there are countries in Africa where it is still peaking. So inflation is really a still a challenge. Second big challenge in my head is, all this macro global economics which is playing, whether it is Russia-Ukraine war, Israel-Hamas thing, or, the various other China slowing down, everything is coming up. Right now, if you look at the economy, it is no longer an economy which is driven only India perspective. Global economy does play a lot of role in India. So I think that is also a second big challenge. And third big challenge, as you picked it up, probable recession. You never know, but there is always a probability.
Yes.
And if you look at these three challenges, it creates a lot of challenges in terms of how do you play your business within those times. Because once you are at inflationary times, that means, first of all, supply chain challenge in terms of whether you will receive those material or not. Second, consumer may cut down the demand. So consumer demand becomes very different. People try to switch their demands. People try to cut down the consumption. People try to switch to lower packs, smaller packs, just to save money or to have, repetitive times instead of doing a home bulk. So I think these are the challenges, and that's where demand planning becomes very important. So for CFO to forecast what the future is, he should understand what consumer is requiring and what the demand will come in. And that is where I believe the one biggest role play with CFO has to play is to go with what is the demand planning. And parallel to demand planning, for sure there will be a supply planning in terms of what is supply available, is supplier there, not there, what are the alternatives. So I think overall, an integrated business plan, if at all I have to use a simple terminology, that is what is required for CFO to play a big role. So that's what my take is. And for doing that, I think there is one more big ask coming out is how do you take help of technology? Because all of this, with so much of variables, technology becomes a key for teams, for organization to, succeed.
Absolutely.
And hence, I think investment in technology, investment in skill sets becomes again an important ask. So if you ask me uncertainties, inflation, geopolitical recessions likely, and what is required is very good integrated demand planning and tools which can help you to develop that kind of a demand planning. So that's what I would say in terms of uncertainty times.
Yeah, great. Thank you. We're actually going to deep dive into all these very important points you're making. So at the onset, how does an organization such as yours of this scale approach your strategic planning when it comes to facing all these challenges, especially in the face of a potential recession once again? How do you approach strategic planning?
So let me put a caveat first, okay? A recession is like a falling knife. You cannot catch it. You never know what is the bottom of it.
Right, wow.
And hence it is important that what you do is you do a lot of strategic planning. So strategic planning, organization like us does it at two levels. One is operational level and second is more at a strategy level. So just to say operational level, are you giving the right price to consumer or to your vendors, suppliers? So right price becomes important. Reason I am saying, just to give you a background, now right price for a consumer in an inflationary market will be very different, because he would like to have a pinch and thereby reduce his consumption. So are you pricing it right? Are you giving it the right quantity, right price, so that he doesn't go off the hook? Otherwise it is very easy for a consumer to switch off, and then very difficult to get him back. So I think so that is one thing. Similarly to vendors, are we paying him the right price? Are we having alternates? Because in this geopolitical world, all of a sudden, prices shoot up. Example, India just stopped supplying rice, and probably Vietnam and other places, the rice prices shot up, isn't it? So I think so, having that knowledge of geopolitical, what is impacting, and thereby having your alternate supplies becomes very important. So I think so, two things: operational, and second is strategical. Strategical planning, what I mean is, you would always have divisions which is growth driven and divisions which are core. So are you getting the right growth in your divisions which are growth? If not, then again you have to go back to strategical plan in terms of, okay, how do you amend it? What is the revised decision which you want to make? Because your investment decision will lie upon what is the outcome which you are getting from these two. And that's how you keep investing back into the business. So I think so these are the two things in terms of strategy planning we as an organization do. Divisional level, and one is, operational level.
Great, got it. Also, as a CFO, I have to ask you, how do you ensure having adequate cash reserves, liquidity during such challenging economic times?
So, if you look at recession per se, so what we believe is, if at all recession comes, then as an organization, we need to pivot our thinking from profit to cash. So I think so cash becomes very important in this whole piece. So we also as an organization have become very conscious of cash. And as a CFO, then probably you have to play a role, into the financing decision, whether it is capital financing, or whether it is your working capital, or whether it is tightening the belt of your own organization, isn't it? So, normally it is not right now we are not in a state of affair where we need to cut down everything. It is still a ongoing business. We still believe recession may come. It is not yet arrived. So in that sense, but we are careful about our investment. So we are taking prioritization. What do we invest? And as we come closer to the first investment, we look at what is the priority to do. Can we invest it? Can we not? Similarly, for working capital, we are coming out of a cycle where inflation was very high. So we had huge inventory levels. Now inflation has mellowed down. So then how do you unturn that inventory cycle? How do you do that? Because finally inventory lying is cash lying in your warehouses, and which you cannot utilize it beyond selling it. So I think so turning around that whole inventory cycle is a big ask. And that's where you need to deploy proper, again, demand supply kind of an equation, so that inventory gets rolled out and you are back to the optimal level. And lastly, as an organization, you never know what is required. It is always difficult to pass on to the consumer. So tightening your own belt is always on the card. That doesn't mean that you do something, very silly, but at the same time, you start doing all the strategic requirements in terms of de-risking, or in terms of making your cost structure very light and agile in terms of moving the things, because that's how your cash liquidity comes in. So I think so broadly, these are the three things which as an organization we do.
What about scenario planning? How effective do you find it in these times?
I think so it is vital to survive. If you don't have scenario plannings, it is really difficult to survive. Again, as I was saying, scenario planning is required, because you never know what things will move, So you have a plan A, but it never works out. To achieve the final goal for an organization, you need to have various plans which can be driven to reach at the final goal. So there are times when you have to take a high consumer pricing. There are times when you have to cut down on your cost. And then you have to decide what is the right thing, more for future outlook rather than now and here, because now you have to sail through that difficult times. So I think so scenario planning is required, and that gives all the options. It helps larger team to come together and understand why things are changing once we have scenario laid down, isn't it? If at all you have a scenario that if A happens, then this is what we approach. If A changes to B, then this is what we approach. So I think so scenario planning is very important. It is a vital tool for you to communicate to the larger audience within the organization, and it is a tool wherein you feel more confident that you will achieve your goals,
Absolutely.
what you have decided for an organization.
Great.
So very vital to survive. I think so it is a necessity.
Okay, great. Also, it's interesting to understand from a CFO's point of view, how do you approach customer relations and really sort of retaining that customer loyalty? Of course, ultimately, it all impacts the revenue that the organization is going to receive. So, how does a CFO fit in with ensuring smooth and very healthy customer relations?
I think so there are three parts to it, if at all I have to put it across. Customer loyalty, one is how does CFO influence, because any customer who is there, he has to earn, organization has to earn. So there has to be a joint business kind of a platform or a joint business plan kind of a thing, wherein we know what does he earn and what does we earn, and thereby what he invests back into the business. So we stress a lot on JBPs, we call it joint business plans. That is the one part, are we doing the joint business plan? I think so the second part is getting the whole commercial organization into, kind of a thought process, because normally people tend to do a lot of new things, and try to forget what has been done. Sometimes just doing the same makes a lot of sense than doing new things. So, getting your right supplies, right product, right store, right location in terms of your shelf, that is very important. So, getting those, because that is what it will help the customer, because that's how the consumer would pick up his things. And this has been tried and tested for multiple years or decades, isn't it? So, probably doing the same thing again and again is very important. And that's where getting focus back to those basics becomes very necessary, especially in these times when it is changing a lot. And third and the last thing is probably, what we need to be also mindful is to get the stable revenue. We need to ensure there are different platforms available for consumer to buy. So it should not be that you are only in, mom and pop stores or only in modern trades. You need to spend, from the platforms available, you need to ensure that your organization is available in all the platforms, at least where it is more, useful for you to be there, because world is changing continuously. So you have to play parallel in terms of be available on different platforms, so that wherever the consumer is, your product is following it or is available. So I think so that's the blend between loyalty as well as, if at all I have to get revenue continuously or, still keep growing, then availability of on different platforms becomes very important.
Yeah, excellent. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. And, you touched upon the importance, of course, of supply chain ultimately, because when there are so many disruptions globally, nationally, supply chain is something that you must look at to ensure your consistency, as we're talking resilience. So what are some of the tools and factors which you keep in mind to really measure the health and the resiliency of your supply chains?
So there are, I think so, multiple tools available. So probably rather than the tools, if at all, I look at, what are the ways in which we manage it is probably these days, no longer supplier, you need to treat them as a supplier. You need to treat them as a partner. As I told you, as macro changes, it is very difficult for supplier with the same probably rate also to supply, because there may be some challenges at his back end, isn't it? So I think so it is very easy to say a supplier is not supplying, but I think so once you become a partner, you will be able to understand what is the challenges. Whatever tab you want to keep on the macro, it is difficult for yourself to keep all the tabs. So that's where, if at all, you continuously communicate with them, make them as a partner, understand what is working for them, you will be able to get those red flags early than later. And once you have the red flags, you have, then bandwidth to get into the alternates. Can you develop an alternate supplier? Can you develop an alternate product? Or so on and so forth. So I think so supply is very crucial, and making supplier instead of a vendor, a partner, that is, I think so, the crucial way of working in that. The larger thing is, I think so, the ways in which you approach your supplier. If that can change, then probably you have a much more insights of what will happen to your supply chain.
Absolutely. So Rajesh, at this point, I got to ask you, understanding all these various factors, all the moving parts, all the challenges that as a CFO you're constantly facing, how do you stay optimistic during a crisis?
One of the biggest role, which there are many CXO members, isn't it? So one of the biggest role for a CFO as a CXO member is risk management. And if you look at the risk management, one of the ask is not even to sail through uncertain times. I'm not talking about risk management in terms of regulatory and others, but risk management in terms of business is not only sailing into the difficult times, but also to, come out as a winner at the end of it.
Yeah.
And for that, I think so two things is very important. One is, looking beyond today. I think so that's one thing which as a CFO should always do it.
Absolutely.
Because once, any of this uncertainty comes, most of the operating teams will fight for what is happening now and here, will happen in next 3 months or 6 months. I think so that's one of the role of a CFO is, while people are doing all of this, can you keep your ears on the ground to understand what are the opportunities also during that time? And factoring those opportunities, communicating those opportunities to the team can be really an optimistic way of looking beyond today. That is what I meant.
Yes.
And second is, I believe these are the times when you have to really handle your teams, because teams are under pressure because of business. So this is the time when you really handle your teams.
Yes.
Do a lot of work on their upskill, give them tools which can help them to navigate this, because it is not easy. I don't think so many decades, we have seen such a high recession also.
That's
so
right.
people have not experienced. So I think so these are the two, looking beyond today, handholding your teams, communicating to them that there is a future which is a little brighter.
Yes.
I think so that's what and it all comes from them when you look at their opportunities which they call out, because you as an individual are not a some blessed with something which you can think about beyond a time. But can we do that is the only way you can become an optimistic.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for these tips and optimism. I'm sure will be very helpful to all of our viewers. Before we wrap up, Rajesh, any kind of few trends or tips you can give us when it comes to FMCG sector, how you think is going to fare in the year ahead?
So let me put up a context, not on FMCG, but as a packaged industry, because FMCG is very wide as an industry. So if you look at packaged food as an industry, probably globally it is 2 to 3 trillion kind of a market. We are 1 or 2% as in India. And if you look at population, India is 17 or 18 odd percentage of the global population.
Right.
So from trend perspective, if you believe that the GDP will grow of India, per capita will grow for India, that means this has to grow significantly.
Yes.
Now, demands will not be the same what it is now, but as an industry, for sure, it has to grow significantly faster than what global is. Global is going at 4-5%. We have seen a CAGR of strong double digits. So I think so. This trend will continue for a longer time. Till the time we have our faith on India GDP and India growth story.
Yes.
That's how I put it up.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rajesh, for all these insights. We're not quite ready to wrap up just yet. We have a little rapid fire round for you. That's okay. I'm sure our viewers would love to know who you are as a leader in the boardroom and out of the boardroom. So a few rapid fire questions.
Sure.
Yeah? Great. Fantastic. All right. So first up, if you could describe your approach to finance in one word, what would it be and why?
I would say finance is a business partner.
Yes.
Because it is no longer finance and old finance wherein you just do accounting, regulatory part. I believe finance is probably right hand or left hand of a CEO who would like to take decision. And as a finance, you have kind of, place to step into each of the functions. So you can look at a holistic view, whether it is supply chain, marketing, sales, and so on and so forth. So I think so business partner is the right word for finance.
Excellent. If you were not a CFO, what would you have been?
Wow. Never thought of, but love to become an entrepreneur. In today's world, I see a lot of excitement in that world. So yes, an entrepreneur.
Okay, excellent. What's the most unexpected skill or hobby that you have that has helped you in your role as a CFO?
Unexpected hobby, probably I will say, not having focus on one thing at one time.
Okay.
Multitasking, that has helped me a lot,
Excellent. All right. If finance were a superhero, what superpower would it have?
Superpower to generate cash. I think so. Cash is the king,
Absolutely.
Cash. Superpower to generate cash.
Okay, great. Yeah, good one. If you were to write a book, what would it be about?
Probably I may not write a book, but I would recommend everybody to read one book by Simon Sinek, which talks about leaders eat last.
Okay.
I think so. That's one book which I would recommend everybody to read.
What's the weirdest financial term or jargon that you've had to explain to someone who's not from the finance field?
We have a jargon known as EBITDA.
Yes.
EBITDA,
Yes.
and then people wonder, which Greek word he's talking about and why he is talking about, and then we have to put that across.
Okay. Okay, great. What's the most innovative financial technology or tool that you've come across recently?
The most innovative tool which I have personally used in the organization is bots.
Okay.
We use a lot of bots in terms of doing the regular work. But probably at some point of time, I believe artificial intelligence will come in.
Absolutely, yes.
And right now it is a little away, but it will come sooner or faster.
Definitely, yes. All right. And finally, one reason why you love finance.
You know everything about the business, and that's the biggest reason you should be in finance is because you can really guide the organization. You know what is there in your backyard, and you know what's lying in the front. So probably that's the best place to be in.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's the reason best to be in finance.
Great. That's a very good reason. Right, Rajesh, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today, and thank you for sharing all of your insights and all your experience with us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, and it's been really wonderful to be here.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, on that note, that's all we have for you in this power-packed episode of ET Studio CFO Blueprint in association with ET CFO. But do stay tuned for more such in-depth conversations where we chat with India's leading CFOs who inspire us with their success stories, their leadership, and their insights. Until next time, many thanks for watching.